On this edition of Independent Sources, security risks, the truth about the city's growing and unregulated security guard sector, and the voodoo that you do. A new exhibit hopes to change the conversation about this form of spiritualism. Those stories and more coming up. Welcome to Independent Sources, bringing you news from New York's ethnic and immigrant communities. I'm Abi Ishola. You may have walked past one of them on your way into the office this morning or as you entered the bank. Private security guards are just about everywhere these days, casting a watchful eye or not. A recent report by the nonprofit news organization City Limits reveals that the booming industry is highly unregulated. That often leads to untrained and underpaid individuals taking these posts. Garry Pierre-Pierre sat down with City Limits executive editor and publisher Jared Murphy to get some more details.
So Jared, what's behind the growth in the security guard industry?
We had a hard time pinning that down exactly, but we think it has a lot to do with sort of post-September 11th concerns about security. Probably insurance companies requiring more of that. I think also people being more interested in the optics of security. I mean, you think about all the places these days where you have to show an ID or sign in or get your bag checked, where before you just kind of breezed in.
Yeah, I mean it's rare occasion. Like for me, when I walk into a building and I'm not being stopped, and I'm like,
wrong. Am I doing
okay?
something wrong? I'm in the wrong entrance. Exactly, and I think that's become second nature for us. But obviously, the vast majority of people manning those stations are not public employees, but they're private security guards, and I think that's the bulk of the generation.
And what are the numbers? I mean, are we talking? Give us a sense from, let's say, pre 9/11. How many people worked in this industry as opposed to now?
It's tens of thousands, it really is. And what we noticed too is that it is projected to continue growing. It hasn't topped out, because of their increasing presence in different places.
In that incredible article that you guys published, City Limits published, I read a line there which says that there are 2 times the number of security guards as police officers, NYPD officers.
That's right, yeah. New York City's police force is self-substantial, 35,000,
yeah.
Right. They are everywhere. If you think about it, it's not just building lobbies, it's construction sites, it's homeless shelters we've heard about. I mean, I work down near City Hall, and every day I walk past 26 Federal Plaza, Immigration Court, a very heavily guarded building, flak-jacketed Homeland Security officers out there every day, but also private security guards. In fact, this fall, a private security guard working there was murdered by a disgruntled employee. Yeah. A strange case of a highly guarded public building where the government is contracting out some of the security to private companies whose guards are not armed and who are much more poorly paid than the armed security guards.
And how much money are these companies making, and what are they paying their guards?
Well, there have been increases in wages. Overall, the average wage of the industry has increased. The starting pay is still around $20,000 a year for a full-time job.
It's pretty low.
Less than many other service industries. But there has been some improvement. There's also been some improvement with unionization within the ranks. One of the problems that guards run into is that jobs are advertised at what would be considered fairly generous wages of $15, $16 an hour, but when they show up, it actually pays less than that. A huge part of the regulation problem that we ran into was that there's a lot of lack of protection for workers and a lot of exploitation, both in terms of showing up for jobs and getting less money, showing up for jobs and not getting the money even you were promised to be paid, and even on the training end, training programs that purport to find you a job, to guarantee you a job, take your money, and then obviously don't deliver.
And so in your article, again, you devote a whole sort of chapter on the lack of information in the industry. Can you explain a little bit more about that? Why is there so opaque? Why is this industry so opaque?
I think it's because I think for one thing is the regulations in general haven't kept up with the growth we were just talking about. They just haven't kept track with it. The second is that it's an interesting industry in that it kind of falls across a couple different subject areas. It is primarily charged with protecting public property. That's why security guards exist. But in the post 9/11 world, they've taken on this public safety function. So you have the fact that the companies are regulated in part by the Department of State, up in Albany, which regulates general businesses, does a lot of licensing for different businesses. But then you also have them regulated partly by the Division of Criminal Justice Services. In the city, some of the training programs are regulated by the Department of Consumer Affairs. So I think part of the problem is you have multiple agencies responsible for regulating.
And usually, of course, in a case like that, a lot of things fall through the cracks.
Fall through the cracks, right. And I think, it's an area where for guards and for the public, there's very little information out there. I mean, I'm sure your show's devoted time to, we've certainly devoted time to talking about how difficult it is to punish, say, police misconduct. But there is a fair amount of reporting and record keeping on that. The CCRB lists how many complaints it has per year, broken down by what kind of...
CCRB, the Civilian Complaint Review Board.
Yes. What kind of abuse is being alleged, what precinct it's being alleged against. There's nothing equivalent to that for security guards. And one of the problems is that part of the attraction for a private company when you hire private security guards is that you're not just hiring guards, you're hiring that company. And so you are insulated by one layer from liability. So somebody roughs someone up, a member of the public feels they've been wronged, when they go to sue over that to get some redress, there's often a question of who exactly are they suing. Are they suing the private security company or the company that hired them? And different courts have ruled different ways. And some of the security companies also are kind of fly-by-night. So by the time you get around to filing your suit, they disappear, they have a different name, they have no assets. So it can be very difficult for the public to track down folks who are wielding some authority over them.
In 1992, Governor Mario Cuomo, the current governor's dad, late Mario Cuomo, he signed the Security Guard Act. What was its purpose, and is that outdated now?
Well, that's it. At the time, we were a pioneer in the country. We were the first state to really require private security guards to go through training to register to get something approaching a license. And that was kind of groundbreaking at its time. But it totally hasn't kept up, as I mentioned, with the growth in numbers. And the regulations themselves are fairly weak. There's no uniform curriculum for the training, for instance. And the agencies that are charged with making sure those training programs are legit, they've had budget cutbacks, and they've had to move on to regulating other industries. And so you have a situation where what's supposed to be an 8-hour training program, sometimes people show up and are there for 4 or 5 hours, sometimes for 30 minutes. Sometimes people told us they go there to the training program and the certificate is already printed for them. Guards don't necessarily mind that because it's coming out of their pocket, it's their time, until they've had an opportunity to be tested, to have some encounter where some training would have come in handy. And then some veteran guards we talked to have said that they now look more carefully for programs to actually give them the training they require.
Now, earlier you mentioned that there was a movement afoot to get them unionized. Do you think that will deal with some of the issues that we've just been talking about, or?
I don't think it's a panacea, but I think in general, increasing regulation, increasing oversight, making sure that exploitation is restricted as much as possible. Unions generally are good at that. Their penetration in the industry is still fairly small. It's growing somewhat.
Which union would be representing someone like
32BJ has a big presence. I think there might be some others involved, but that's the biggest one that's done the most growth. They have 12,000 registered members now, if I'm recalling correctly. But yeah, they've made some inroads. And I think what's interesting about this industry, and the reason we looked at it, is there's so much interest now in low-wage work and some of the problems it causes. Nail salon workers, fast food workers. This is an industry where the low wages are part of a bigger pattern of poor regulation, and it affects not just the workers, but also customers who have to deal with security officers.
Sure. And so is there a difference between an armed security guard and those who are not armed with a weapon?
Yes, there is. The security guards who are armed have to take, I think it's 47 hours of training. We didn't look too carefully at that because it's a minority of the guards. We assume those programs are generally more rigorous. I should mention, too, that the regulations for how to become a guard or maintain your guard license differ depending on your background. If you're a former police officer or a correction officer, it's generally easier to get either the armed or unarmed license.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jared, for joining us.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks for having me.
You can read the 2-part series at the website citylimits.org. When we come back, why street vendors are up in arms. Before that, Crystal Lowe has some other news.
Thanks, Abby. Here's a look at some headlines from New York's ethnic and community media. A study conducted by the Economic Development Corporation shows that a new citywide ferry service could increase air pollution at 12 docking sites around the city. The citywide ferry will be introduced to New Yorkers next year as an affordable way to travel between waterfront communities throughout New York City. However, DNA Info reports that the EDC predicts that nitrogen dioxide emissions from the ferry engines could exceed the standard set by the Environmental Protection Agency. The EDC says the study is based on a worst-case scenario, and the operator will work to make improvements on the ferry system's air quality. The Sunset Park Voice reports on Midwood Ambulance, a Brooklyn ambulance service for Brooklyn's Asian American community. The program is offering services to patients in several languages. It's already impacting the Asian American community in a huge way. Not only is it providing healthcare access to a growing portion of Brooklyn's population, it's also solidifying union jobs through the Teamsters for Chinese American youth. The service is also sending a portion of its revenue back into the community through the United Chinese Association for seniors and children. TANY, otherwise known as the Thai Artists in New York, is making its rounds across the city, showcasing its participants' ideas and experiences through art and creativity. The collective debuted last September in Union Square. It's made up of 10 to 12 artists working in a variety of fields, including sculpture, photography, film production, and coding. One of their main missions is to provide a space where artists can collectively hold exhibits and a way for different members of the Thai community to connect across generational differences. Voices of New York reports that, in addition to improving relations across generational gaps within the Thai community, TANY artists also use the group as a way for its members to obtain O1 visas that are reserved for immigrants with extraordinary talents. In other news, Garifuna Jazz is making its way to the South Bronx. Caribbean Life covers the Afri-Garifuna Jazz Ensemble and its month-long South Bronx Culture Trail Fusion Fest through the South Bronx. The festival, entitled Looking Up the Boogie Down, pays tribute to pioneer Bronx artists who were inspired by the neighborhood. Collaborating partners include Dancing in the Streets, City Lore, Lincoln Center's Borough Link, Bronx Music Heritage Center, Bronx Academy of Arts and Dance, and NYCHA. The Afri-Garifuna Ensemble Festival is being held in many venues of the Bronx and bills itself as a festival held on stoops, roofs, and nooks from now until May 22nd. And finally, organizers and activists are preparing for Malcolm X Day. The Amsterdam News highlights that not only does the day mark Malcolm X's 91st birthday, it also commemorates 27 years of the annual 125th Street business shutdown in Harlem. The day was first celebrated in 1993 and is usually observed on the third Sunday in May. This year's festivities will start at noon with a Black Power March at the Adam Clayton Powell State Office Building, followed by the Shut 'em Down March from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. All businesses on 125th Street between St. Nicholas and 5th Avenue are required to shut down their businesses and close their gates during a 3-hour period for a moment of commercial silence. Celebrations are currently held in 15 states around the nation. Those are just a few headlines from the city's ethnic and community media. Independent sources will be right back.
Thanks for staying tuned. City street vendors are calling on lawmakers to increase the cap on licenses that allow them to hawk their goods along sidewalks. These licenses have been capped at 5,000 since 1981, but the Street Vendor Association estimates that about 3 times as many vendors actually operate in the city. Garry Pierre-Pierre spoke with the Street Vendor Association's director, Sean Basinski, about the push for more permits.
So Sean, tell us, what kind of licenses exactly are you trying to get people, the city to open up and issue to potential vendors?
So there's 2 different main kind of street vending licenses for the 2 main kind of vendors, food vendors and then merchandise vendors. Mm-hmm. So we want both really, because there are caps on both numbers.
And what are the caps?
So it gets complicated, but basically for food vendors, you've got 3,000 or 4,000. Mm-hmm. That's the cap set back in 81. 37 years ago, 35 years ago. For general merchandise vendors, if you're not a U.S. military veteran it's even less, 853. So we want both of those caps lifted.
But you give those numbers, I'm sure the official numbers, but for those of us who walk the streets of Manhattan or Brooklyn or Queens, we see a whole lot more street vending going on than that. So are they operating on the margins or what's going on?
Exactly, Gary. So a lot of people, because you have to wait for 30 years to get a license.
How long?
It can be 25 or 30 years.
That's a generation.
You might be dead. I mean, hopefully you're not. But it's true. Some people have died waiting for licenses. And because that number is so small, that many people vend without a license, well, that's not a solution because now the police are chasing after them. We're using police resources. We're locking them up. We're taking away their carts for no crime except trying to feed their families and make an honest living. So instead, let's give those people licenses, get them to pay taxes, and make sure they follow all the regulations with respect to where you vend, and let them be a part of our city and contribute to our society.
Okay. Well, some people would argue that, hey, there are an incredible number of vendors anyway, so why do we need more?
Well, there's a much smaller number of vendors now. It's really a historic low. Back in the mid-20s, there were 25,000 street vendors in New York City. And
it was
so,
a different city, you would argue.
There's more people now in the city than there were a total number of people. So we think there should be more vendors. It should at least grow proportionately. Mm-hmm. I was just in Manila for the World Street Food Congress.
Okay.
Maybe 100,000 vendors. LA, they've got 50,000 vendors. So it's a big city. There's room for more people, and more people want to work. We need jobs for people. We need folks, especially immigrants and other people who may not be able to get that 9-to-5 job in the office building. They suffer from limited English skills. They might not have a formal degree in this country. They may not have any degree, mm-hmm. and yet they need a chance to work. So let's give them a chance to work. Our city is big enough to be able to accommodate everybody. Now, not everybody's going to be able to vend in Times Square. They're going to have to spread out, and we're going to help them do that. Mm-hmm. But it's a big city with lots of opportunities to work in our public spaces.
Is the city open to issuing more permits and licenses? And if so, how much do they charge for these permits?
So we've been talking and working with the city council and the mayor's people for 2 years now, almost exactly 2 years. And they're open to it. That's the good news. The bad news is it's been slow. We know that people have been working and talking about this issue very much. Our vendors are clamoring for more permits and licenses. And we want to go back to the way that things were before the caps were put in place, where if you want to be a vendor in New York City, well, you march down to the Consumer Affairs Department and you get your vending license. You go to work. You help our city. Now, they still have to follow lots of rules. If you're selling food, you still have to take your required health department classes, food handling, safety. There's many places where you cannot sell, but we think that people should be able to sell if they want to without this cap in place. How many people will sign up as vendors? We don't know. But for every person that does it, that means a family's being supported, and that means a business is being started. Those vendors are going to move into the storefronts, and they're going to incubate the whole economy. Well, that's what the studies show happens, and well, it's good for our whole economy, really.
So, you talking to the city, what kind of signals have they sent you? Are they for or against going back to pre-1920 system?
Yeah, some are for, some are scared, and what are they scared of? They're scared of the big real estate companies. There's a lot of people, big corporations, who don't want there to be any more vendors. In fact, they don't want there to be any vendors at all. And sadly, they still have. Of course, they should have a voice, but they shouldn't have an outsized voice, which they still do. They give a lot of money to our politicians, and we are hopeful, though, that with the mayor and the city council now being very progressive and really prioritizing making a more fair city, a more equitable city, that now is the time when it won't be the real estate interests that get their say, but the people, the regular people, the street vendors, the immigrants, the veterans, and folks like you and me that want to buy from them have a chance to have our voices heard. And so, we're hopeful that soon there'll be a proposal at City Council that will lift these caps as we've been asking to happen for 2 years.
I know that a lot of communities, there's a movement afoot to bring a lot of street vendors to one specific location, be it a school yard or some kind of. Is this part of what you guys are trying to do as well, or is just what you're trying to do is, or what you're proposing, what you're asking is that people are free to vend mostly where there's a spot?
Right. So most of our members are vending on the public sidewalks and streets. It's true. They're out there every day. But these markets are fantastic. And, most of them happen on one weekend day in different neighborhoods, like you said, where they bring people together. One of the reason these markets are so successful is because people can't get permits to vend on the sidewalk. And so it's shown people, hey, how many people are out there that want to sell food, they want to sell their artwork, they want to sell merchandise. It brings people together. Vendors are good for neighborhoods, they're good for cities. And this market, we actually have our own market now that we do up on Sundays in East Harlem. Same idea, we have a big public space. The Speaker of City Council has been supportive. We bring folks together to sell food and merchandise, and people from the community come and they have a nice time. And we make that connection with your event. You have a connection with the person who's selling you your food or their artwork. It's not the same as going to the shopping mall or going to the supermarket. It's a more personal connection. That's what people are really craving now, and that is the case for markets or for vendors on the public sidewalk.
Indeed, and Sean Brzezinski, unfortunately we're out of time. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Gary.
Stay tuned. There's more to come on Independent Sources. Finally from us, voodoo has gotten a bad rap in pop culture. Many Americans know it as a form of black magic depicted in the film The Serpent and the Rainbow, the stuff of nightmares filled with curses and zombies, or as Haitians sometimes call them, loup-garou. Our very own Garry Pierre-Pierre is behind a new photographic exhibit at Brooklyn Central Library that's seeking to dispel all the negative stereotypes surrounding this form of spiritualism. I sat down with Garry in studio, and Mambo Kerma Jean-Marie joined us via Skype to talk about the other side of voodoo. Welcome, Garry. You're a guest today on the show, which is quite different.
Yes,
Yes?
and it's great to be on the other side.
And joining us is Kerma Jean-Marie, also known as Mambo Kerma. Welcome, Mambo Kerma.
Thank you.
So, Garry, tell us a little bit about your exhibit.
Well, this exhibit, Abby, is about a voodoo ceremony that took place in Brooklyn and during the Labor Day weekend in September. Basically, it's the Haitian diaspora in New York celebrating its faith and its spirituality in a very open way. Voodoo in Haiti, in the United States for the last 10 years, until the last 5 years or so, was seen as something dark and mysterious, and people didn't want to publicly accept it. And so the last 5 years or so, there's a movement afoot by Haitians all over the world, frankly, to really put it out there. And I was really privileged to have been given access to these types of ceremonies. And so here, hence this exhibit at the Brooklyn Public Library in Park Slope.
Wonderful. And Mambo Kerma, Garry mentioned that voodoo is not a religion, it's a spirituality. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, we hear a lot of people talking about voodoo as a religion. We also hear a lot of people talking about voodoo as a spirituality. I think it's important that we make a little difference between those two terms. Religion is an institution made by a man. Spirituality is in you. It borns in you. It's a relation that you have with nature. It's a relation that you have with the universe. But it comes in you. It comes from you. So by that definition, it's quite simple to understand that voodoo is something that we do express from inside. It doesn't come from outside. Even if you see voodoo, even if you see someone talking about voodoo and everything, if it doesn't come inside you, if you don't feel it, you can't believe in it.
Yeah.
Religion, you're mostly forced to believe in it. So the first big difference that I would say is that we talk about spirituality, as I say, because it's about nature, it's about vibe, energy, universe, and ancestors, our ancestors. That's what leaded us from the beginning and what is still leading us today. So it's not a religion. I won't say it's a religion. Now we see people fighting. In Haiti, people are fighting, and in Africa also. I saw that lately. They're fighting to make it be a religion by now.
I was just going to ask you, are there any plans to make it more organized in that way?
I don't know if it's a good idea. I'm gonna be really honest with you. It's not a good idea. If you want to make voodoo become a religion, you would need a lot of information from what happened before the colonization. And all those informations are destroyed.
Okay.
And it's wanted like that, you know?
Yeah.
The people wanted us to forget where it's from. And now if you want it to become a religion, how you gonna do? There's no date. There's no date to determine when did it start. There's no founder of this. So it has always existed. How can you make a religion? How can a man make a religion about something that he had found there?
Yeah. And Garry, bringing you back into the conversation, what do you want people to take away from the exhibit, and what can people expect from it?
Well, essentially, what I want people to get from this exhibit is that the complexity of voodoo, as Mambo Karma has explained, it's a spirituality. And when I first started on this project, I was really concentrating a lot when people were possessed, when there was a lot of drama, because as a journalist, I'm looking for that dramatic moment. And after a while, I realized, there's a lot of beauty post, pre, even when people are possessed, and I started focusing on that. So I want people to look at the complexity of it. It's not a, easy thing to understand. And so I'm hoping that through looking at the pictures, looking at the people's faces, because there's a lot of portraits, it's really important, because I think the people who are practicing voodoo are as fascinating than the ceremony itself to me, because the ceremonies, there's a lot of similarities between a lot of religion or spirituality. But here, I think, like Mambo Karma said, you can see the people are feeling something. It's the feeling that you get out of it, and that's what I really want people to understand. It's not black magic. There's not a lot of people killing people there. It's nothing like that. Relax, chill out, enjoy it. Open your eyes, open your heart, and get involved. This is, by the way, Haitian History Month in the United States and Canada, and so this is one of many activities that will be going around Haitian culture.
Wow. And as a Haitian man, is any of this personal for you?
Well, very personal, of course. I mean, one of the things that I want to do, in my perch as a journalist, really put part of my culture out there and make people understand it in a way that they can communicate, they can relate. Because once people understand something, then they can really relate to it. And that's what we want to do, I want to do.
Yeah. So what are your future plans for this topic?
Well, I'm working on a book that's going to transcend about 10 or 12 chapters, different ceremonies, different ways that the religion or the spirituality is practiced in North America.
Wow. Okay, so when can we expect the book?
I'm hoping it'll be out in November. Why November? One of the reasons I'm wearing purple, because purple is a very significant color in Vodou. It's the Gede color, and it's one of the most popular and well-known ceremony in the Vodou practice. And so hoping that in November it'll be in collaboration with the Gede ceremony that the book could be out.
Sounds great. Garry Pierre-Pierre, thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure.
And Mambo Karma, thanks for joining us.
It was a pleasure and an honor to be there.
Thank you. That's our show this week. Thanks for staying tuned. Till next time, be independent-minded.